Hey guys, it's Payne. This is the video we're going to cover the last three fights of UFC 288. If you haven't watched my last one, please go ahead and do that. Well, let's just get right into it. So let's start with Jessica Andrade and Yan Xiaonan. This one I'm very excited for. I remember in my What's Next video series that I used to do for Yan's last fight, I even picked Jessica Andrade as a possible future opponent for her, and now we're getting it. So let's get right on into it. Jan's going to be 2 inches taller with a 1 inch reach advantage. Obviously, Jessica is the more experienced fighter, not only inside of the UFC, but as a whole. She did lose her last fight to Erin Blanchfield, although it was after a 1 month turnaround, really quick after a win against Lauren Murphy, where she just brutalized Lauren Murphy. But anyway, she's very well rounded and can work just about anywhere. Likes to put high pressure on her opponents in a fast pace. Really makes a point to control the pace of the fight. Um, and that's where Jan's going to have the biggest difficulty, I think. And especially because, in terms of strength, I think Jan is at a disadvantage going up against Jessica Andrade. Jessica's got so much knockout power. We've seen her just beat girls up. I mean, you saw the Lauren Murphy fight. If you saw that, that was a brutalization. And throughout all 15 minutes, just brutally beating the hell out of Lauren Murphy. And I thought the fight should have been stopped at not even halfway through the second round, to be honest. But anyway, she's got 9 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 7 decisions in her entire career. Recklessly fights at times, and that does often end up being what gets her and what causes her losses. When she gets a bit too reckless against the higher level opponents, and this is definitely one of them in Yan Xiaonan, it does tend to not work out so well for her. But I think she can stay controlled and composed. Now, Yan Xiaonan has won her last fight against Mackenzie Dern. Before that, she lost her last two to Marina Rodriguez and Carla Esparza. She's also got notable wins over Claudia Gadelha, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and Angela Hill. She's got 9 decisions, 1 submission, and 6 knockouts in her career. All decision wins inside of the UFC. She definitely prefers to stand. And I think going to the ground with Jessica Andrade is definitely not the move to go with. She does like to play it patient and tactical, but almost any time she gets an opportunity, she's going to throw flurry of strikes. Like punches and bunches, she's going to throw 4 or 5 shots, trying to connect with all of them. Whether even 2 of them connect, she's going to do that. But I don't think that's going to work for her in this fight, not against Jessica Andrade, because Andrade is perfectly fine with slugging it out with somebody. Now, Jan does have very good takedown defense. I'm not sure if Jessica's even going to look to take her to the ground. I would assume so. But Jessica Andrade is, in my opinion, I think that Jessica Andrade is more comparable to the skill level that Vanderlei Silva was at back when Vanderlei was fighting in Pride. I mean, she just runs through people. And if she doesn't run through you, she's going to hurt you along the way. Even if she loses, you're going to get hurt along the way. And really, I just don't see a way that Jan is going to be able to win this fight. Not with the way that she fights. I think Jessica's just too well rounded. She's got too many options to go with in terms of what the game plan is for this fight. And I'm going to be taking Jessica Andrade in this fight. And on to the co-main event. This one's got a lot of people excited. Bilal Muhammad against Gilbert Burns. Now, this fight could very well have title implications for the winner, whether it be either one of these guys. They're both so good. They're both high up in the rankings, and they're both on fire as of late. But as far as the actual fight goes, Bilal's won his last 8 fights, including his last 4 being against Sean Brady, Vicente Luque, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and Damian Maia. He's a decision machine. He did finish Sean Brady in this last fight, but aside from that, he's got 10 decisions inside the UFC with 16 in total throughout his career. Now, Gilbert Burns won his last 2 fights against Masvidal and Neil Magny. He's had 7 fights since 2020. He's 5-2 in those 7 fights. The only 2 losses coming to Kamaru Usman, who was the champion at the time, and Khamzat Chimaev in a very close split decision. Now, like Jessica Andrade in her last fight, Gilbert's coming off of a quick turnaround, having only fought last month against Masvidal. Now, this would worry me in most cases, but the way that he dealt with Masvidal, it was so dominant that I feel the fact that he fought a month ago isn't really going to affect him. I don't think he's going to come into a play in this fight. Now, Bilal obviously is going to look to take Burns to the ground. It's his game plan with going against anybody, but he may have to stand up a little more than he normally does in his fights because Burns is not easy to take down. Burns is also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got big power in his hands, and I think Burns is going to have a clear stand-up advantage in this fight. And I think that's where I'm coming to my decision on who I'm picking, because you go to the grappling, and both these guys are going to be very closely contested with each other. I guarantee you that. We're not going to see either one of these guys completely dominate the other guy for the entirety of 25 minutes. By the way, I forgot to say, this is a 5-round co-main event, so it's 25-minute fight, which I would say Bilal is probably more geared towards handling, but I believe Burns has what it takes to do that as well. And Gilbert can also be very explosive whenever he chooses to be, and I think that if he approaches this fight on the feet the same way that he approached Hamzat, I think he could get a very quick finish in this fight. And I don't see this one going to a decision either. I know Bilal is just an absolute decision machine, but I think Gilbert's going to finish this fight, and I'm going to take Gilbert Burns in this one. And now for the main event, a very anticipated return for Henry Cejudo. Triple C's coming back to face the bantamweight champion, Aljamain Sterling, and we're going to get right on into it. Now, starting off, first I got to list the achievements. Henry Cejudo, they call him Triple C for a reason. The C's stand for champ. All right, he's won 2 belts inside of the UFC, both at 125 and 135. And then before that, back in 2008, he was a gold medalist in the Olympics. He went 16-2 throughout his career before he decided to retire, and definitely impressed a lot of people. And he had people even talking about him as the GOAT, despite not having as long a career as some of the other people who are in that conversation. And Cejudo's also got some very big wins over guys who are not only top-tier athletes, but also guys who are able to be put into the conversation for some of the best to ever do it. Guys like Demetrius Johnson, Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, and then we get into the more top-tier level guys who aren't quite the best to do it, but they're still at the top of the line. Guys like Marlon Moraes, Jussier Formiga, Wilson Hayes, Sergio Pettis, who's the current Bellator champ right now. He's extremely well-rounded. He's got a very tricky style of fighting when it comes to the feet, and tends to be a bit unpredictable as to when he does. He's got a lot of big power in his hands too, and he's not afraid to throw punches and bunches either. And on top of that, you will rarely see Henry Cejudo willing to take a backpedal unless he's hurt. But Aljamain Sterling, on the other hand, is the current bantamweight champion with 2 title defenses over TJ Dillashaw and Peter Yan. Aljo has won his last 8 fights. He's got 10 decisions and 8 submissions in his career. He was also an NCAA Division III wrestler back in college. And just like Henry Cejudo, he's also extremely well-rounded with a kind of tricky style of fighting whenever it comes to the feet too. I mean, these guys just seem so similar, aside from a couple of achievements. But in the way that they fight, you could really see this fight going either way. And Cejudo is one of the few guys as a champion who always came out looking for a finish, regardless of who he's fighting. But in this fight, I think Aljamain is going to be able to get the finish. Because like I said, it's been 3 years since Cejudo's last fight. I mean, his last fight was even in this month of 2020 when he retired. And I feel like all this time away has done nothing but hurt him. And he can say that ring rust doesn't exist all he wants, but at the end of the day, we've seen it happen. We've seen examples of ring rust. We've seen so many examples of guys who have retired and then decided, oh, never mind, I want to come back a few years later. And then more often than not, they lose. They can't get it back going again. They can't get that momentum that they had before they retired. And also, Aljamain is 3 inches taller with almost a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, on the feet, I'll be honest, I think Cejudo has the advantage, slightly. On the ground, though, Aljamain Sterling is one of the most dangerous men in the bantamweight division. And I think Aljamain's going to be able to get a submission in this fight. So I'm calling it Aljamain Sterling by submission for the main event of this fight. And to recap all of the fights that we've gone over in the last 2 videos, I'll be taking Kennedy Nzechukwu, Matt Favola, Kron Gracie, Movsar Evloev, Jessica Andrade, Gilbert Burns, and Aljamain Sterling. And that's all I got for y'all today. Hope y'all have a good one. Hit like, subscribe, and all that.